we are here with Emmelie de Forest, who won Eurovision in 2013 with her iconic song, Only Teardrops. Emmelie, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
What was your relationship to Eurovision growing up?
My mom, who's Danish, didn't watch it that much, but my dad, who was Swedish, the tradition in Sweden when it comes to Eurovision is just something else. So he loved Eurovision.
You know, saying that you're Danish and Swedish to then win in Sweden.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And then take it, across the bridge must have made it extra special.
Yeah, so it was very easy to get there and it felt like being home.
Yeah, I mean, it's good when Eurovision can be a short commute.
Yeah, definitely.
But speaking about your mom, you sang in a choir with your mom, right?
Yeah, for a short while, yeah.
You have to talk about the influence that she had on you as an artist.
Some artists I know, the parents was perhaps against going in a more artistic direction and doing music full time, but she just always backed me up, but without, being pushy. She was not a momager. But yeah, obviously when I was 14, I couldn't drive a car. So she was like, if you want to do this and you take it seriously, then of course I will drive you on weekends. So she did that from I was 14 till I was, I guess, 18, 19, when I was singing in a duo with a Scottish musician, Fraser Neal from Glasgow. So we toured around in Jylland especially, and Mom was the driver and the roadie. And I think actually at some of the places it was probably even illegal for me to sing because I was like 14, 15 and they were serving alcohol.
Right.
But I just got a hot chocolate after singing, but it was actually with whipped cream. I did this almost every weekend. Yeah. And I guess when you're like a teenager, you have that drive. You're a bit crazy. I was like the one who booked the gigs after school. I thought it was annoying that I kept calling and I was like 14, 15. I was so eager, but usually I got the gigs.
True. And then going from, gigging after school to winning Eurovision within a few years.
Yeah.
Had
not expected that.
Yeah. So can you kind of talk about the origins of Only Teardrops and what the song meant to you at the time?
Yeah.
How many times can we win and lose? How many times can we break the rules between us? Only teardrops. How many times do we have to fight? How many times do we get it right between us? Only teardrops.
And sadly, it's the only song I didn't write, but I wanted to do it. It was more poppy than what I had done previously, but it had this kind of folky Celtic vibe, which was in tune with what I had done with Fraser all these years. The way it happened was that I moved to Copenhagen to study singing technique, and it was very expensive, so I had to play lots of gigs to save money. And then a friend from my singing school, she had been on a talent program on Denmark's radio, and they needed test singers for X Factor. So actually, they weren't really judging us singers, they were judging the judges, because they have to see who works best on television. And you got a gift card for the cinema with popcorn. And they were like, do you want to maybe be an X Factor? And I don't want to say anything bad about X Factor, but I just felt like it was a lot of drama week after week, a lot about the judges and cover songs you didn't necessarily get to pick what you wanted to sing. So I said no, but I want to be in Dansk Melodi Grand Prix, which is the Danish Eurovision. And they gave me the email address on the guy who later became my manager. And then he was like, I have the song that I think could be a perfect match for you. And it sounded very different then, because there was like a bagpipe on.
Oh, wow.
Instead of the penny whistler.
Oh, wow. That's a different song.
It was a very different demo, and it was actually a song that had been written for the German Eurovision, and they had said no to it. So it had been lying around for a couple of years actually, and at the last minute, I think it was in December, I was told that we were in the competition.
Wow, it's like the other test singers got some popcorn and a movie ticket, but you got popcorn, movie ticket, and a Eurovision trophy.
We got Frederik Tog on as a producer, and he was the one who came up with the penny whistle. In Eurovision, it's always good to have like a trademark or something that captures the audience very quickly. So he was like, oh, we need like this Titanic moment almost. And we talked about different staging also later on. I remember Lisa was like, yeah, we should get like an old wizard, like sort of Gandalf who's like next to you. And I was like, no way.
That's incredible.
I wasn't performing. I was just being myself. So no dancing, no choreography. No shade on that. It's just I'm a terrible dancer. So you would not want to see me dance.
We might have to find a way to make this happen. Can you talk a little bit about that MGP experience?
I think it went well, I guess, because we won.
You won.
Yeah, but it was very chaotic in some way because I had performed all these years, but never on television.
Yeah.
And it's just something else with cameras and the in-ears that you have to wear when you sing on
It's like
television.
yeah.
And it's like you hear your own voice in your ears. So I was so sad when I watched my performance at the Danish competition because I felt like I was really pitchy.
That's the sign of a great artist,
I know,
right? You
but,
win
well,
the
I
contest
know.
and you're like, I have thoughts.
Yeah, I was not happy. But then I was like, hey, it can only get better for Malmö. And we practiced a lot with the in-ears and cameras. And it was just overwhelming, the press and the attention. And then when you're young, because I'm turned 31 now, and it feels very different than being 19, 20, which is
That's the thing.
an awful time, really, to be alive, isn't it? Even the months before that, because we decided to write an entire album where I was part of that writing and recording it. So we had an album ready in case I did win, instead of just having one song. We only had a month to write it, a month to record it, or less than that, 3 weeks. But of course, it could have been a better album if we had had more time. But I think it turned out pretty okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't do any partying because I was worried that something would happen to my voice. If you could get one of the artists from the other delegations to get drunk, you would try to do that. But I wasn't part of that. But I received a lot of presents from other delegations with chocolate, I guess, because I found out that I didn't like drinking that much. I thought it was amazing. My team didn't, because I was just in my hotel room eating chocolate. So I think I managed to actually gain quite a lot of weight those 2 weeks. And they were like, you have to be on television and you look bigger in front of a camera. It was kind of a terrible thing to say, but in a way, I get it when you're preparing for a big thing.
Listen, the chocolate method very clearly worked. You won.
Yeah, on the night, I didn't know what to expect because we didn't really get any points in the beginning. And then all of a sudden, the points started coming in. And then I think when we realized we had won, the program was like running late. So also there were still 5 countries who needed to give their votes, but they just announced we had won, even though not everyone had given their votes. It was a lot. We're a small country. So when someone does good abroad, whether it's sports or music or film, we feel happy about it. But, it was a bit much at some point. So I took a lot of taxis, actually, because if I was on the metro or S train, as we call it, or bus, I would get recognized. And it's so hard to say, no, I don't have time. Not that I regret anything, but, when you're busy and everything is happening at the same time, you will do mistakes and you just have to make quick decisions. So there was like a deadline for when the single had to come out and the music video. And I think the record label had spent a lot of money on the first music video for Teardrops. So we went with like another director.
Right.
And that video turned out really bad. Even my mom was like, what the hell? When your mom says that, it's bad. It's still on YouTube. But it was just awful. But the song was pretty good. But then we wrote Rainmaker, actually in 2013 when I was in Stockholm. And I guess Denmark's radio and everyone loved it so much. So we're like, hey, we could make it like the theme song of next year's Eurovision.
After that, you move into other spaces. Drunk Tonight is one of the first ones that really I was like, oh, new sound.
Nothing is worse than a drunk ex-text, so stop wherever you are.
I think it's always hard especially when your debut is something so big as winning Eurovision. Because, how do you top that? Then people think, oh, this is maybe the only thing you can do. And I obviously felt like I had a lot of, other songs in me that I wanted to write and present. But yeah, I think Eurovision is great if you want to make a living from music and travel the world, play gigs, and you have this big hit. So if you have those royalties, you just need some gigs every year.
Right.
Then it's your full-time job. So I still make a living from music and have done that ever since I won. But of course, it closes the door to some things, and crossing over to like mainstream radio can be more tricky. And I've done it with some singles, but not with, every song. I guess also depending on who's in charge radio-wise in Denmark and how much they hate Eurovision or not.
It is weird when you look at these phases of Eurovision. I was speaking to a friend who said that like 5-6 years ago, Sanremo had really taken a dive of how people saw it in Italy.
Oh, really?
And there was the guy who took over as host, who's done it for the last 5 years. He really changed it. And now this year, I think they said that 10 of the top 20 or something like that of the songs in Italy were Sanremo songs.
In Sweden, we've had Christer Björkman for so many years who made it into this incredible competition. I mean, yes, it's a family show and kids watch it and grandmothers, but it's for everyone. And you can see every year, like you said, with Italy and Sweden, you don't even need to win it. It's just, you get a radio hit just being on the show. And I think that's the problem in Denmark, that there's like a conflict there that the commercial radios won't play the songs. As a songwriter, you don't want to send your best songs. Right. But I hope it can change, because we've seen that in other countries. I was in America a few times after I won, and they didn't really know what Eurovision was, so it doesn't have that stigma. They just knew, hey, Celine Dion won it, so it must be cool. I remember that time I met with a guy, I think he's a manager for A$AP Rocky now, but at the time he was a guy who discovered and signed Lana Del Rey. And I was so nervous at those meetings, and 21 years old. But it was mostly writing sessions and recording. And I wrote Drunk Tonight there with Musella, who was the co-writer on Miley Cyrus' Wrecking Ball. And David Foster, I think I was there for like 40 minutes and got to jam with him. So cool. And he was like, bring in the Bryan Adams guitar. I had my partner with me, so he was playing the guitar and David was playing the piano, and I think I sang like a cover of an Etta James song, I'd Rather Go Blind, I think. I got his number and he was like, you're really good when you have these songs, and it better be great, not good, but great. You can text me.
As you send the email, you're like, is this the song? You were a songwriter on Lucy Jones's Never Give Up on You.
Yeah.
I will never give up on you. I don't care what I've got to lose.
Well, I co-wrote it with two guys. She's really good at just when she's on stage, she's like really telling a story. And during the week in Ukraine, I was there with her and the BBC to promote it. And people were like, she's going to be number 7, number 5, the bookmakers. And then I think we got like a 15th place, maybe.
Yeah.
And it was the year after Brexit. So it was also hard. Yeah.
15th place the year after Brexit.
Good,
it's
right?
Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did that come to be?
The BBC wanted to do better in Eurovision, and they did like different camps, I think also in the UK, but also in Scandinavia and in Sweden and then in Denmark. And then you just get on these teams, and we wrote the song like in a day, because you change teams like the next day. So you have a short time to finish it. And we tested different singers on it. There was like a guy who was playing the guitar, so it was like a more folky version actually.
Oh, interesting.
And because we had so little time, I sang the demo, but it was very stripped down, just piano. So we added a bit more on the track when we decided on Lucy.
I assume.
Yeah. Exactly.
Does your process change depending on whether you're writing it for yourself or for another singer?
I can say that I feel more freedom in a sense when I'm not writing to myself, for myself actually, which sounds strange maybe. If there's no artist involved, there's just no rules, you just write. And that can be good, of course, when there's no rules, but I also like when the artist is involved, because of course you want to get their inputs.
Right.
And also, especially for Eurovision, if you don't have an artist on board, it can be tricky. When Teardrops was written, it was like the more old school way. There wasn't an artist on board. But now it seems like there needs to be an artist and often a label on board. But I have a good couple of songs in the drawer that I would love to pitch.
Oh my God.
And one of them is definitely a winner. It could win the whole thing with the right artist.
Okay. All right. Artists, send us your emails. Your album history, it has a really different perspective than the Only Teardrops album.
I was definitely in a much better place when I wrote the history album. I guess that's a good thing about getting older. It's true what they say, everything gets easier.
Yeah.
I guess until some point when you get really old, it
and
gets
it starts
tricky again.
Really hard.
But so far, it's good. When you're younger, you throw yourself into all these situations. So in a way, maybe you're more brave. But then when things get difficult, I think you're better equipped when you're older to deal with that. I was in a better place and I had much more time also to write. And the songs are very different from one another. And I actually got a bit of critique for that, because I think some people thought it was very confusing. If you want to do all kinds of genres, and I want to do that. At some point, I want to do an album in Danish. And I've been working on a punk rock grunge album, because I was like a rock chick in my teenage years, like the Dead Kennedys and the Sex Pistols. Yeah. So, and it's so fun to just have no rules when you write. I think when I was younger, I was always trying to, the next big pop hit, and the record label was also expecting that. You don't get to experiment and write an album. But yeah, I think you should be able to experiment. And even Beyonce gets so much critique for doing a country album. And it's just crazy. The project I'm working on now, and I have been working on for 2 years, is something, I can't say too much about it, but it's always been my dream. And it's something with thousands of chords and thousands of harmonies and very cinematic, some might say.
I know you can't say more, but we're going to have to follow up as soon as it's released.
Yeah, off the record, I can say more maybe.
yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. I think what's great is like when you said that some people criticize the album for having a lot of different things. To me, it's very creative. And two songs in particular that really stand out on that front are Going Ghost and Rabbit.
I gotta walk my rabbit, my itsy bitsy rabbit. Don't you get it, gotta do it, it's a habit.
Oh, thank you.
And
That's actually my two favorites as well.
really?
So I'm happy you say that. I had bought a rabbit actually in January, like a real rabbit. As a pet. She was the inspiration because when I was working one night, it was really late and I said, I have to go home. And he was like, what? We still have stuff to do. And I was like, yeah, but I gotta walk my rabbit because she needs exercise. She was.
The rabbit is literally true. I was like,
because people were
this is
thinking
a metaphor, and then there's like the Looking Glass reference, and you're like, oh, this is Alice in Wonderland. But no, there's a real rabbit.
And then it was like turned into this thing that it's this guy inviting me out and yeah, I'm like, I can't. I have to walk my rabbit. Some thought it was like about a sex toy. And I was like, no, it is a rabbit, a real rabbit.
So changing gears a little bit, this year's Eurovision obviously is happening against the backdrop of the war in Gaza.
Yeah.
And you won in a time that was, I think, different for both Eurovision and Europe. And how should Eurovision think about balancing it, letting artists speak or sing on issues that are important to them. But on the other hand, there seems to be a real desire to steer the contest away from too much controversy.
Eurovision was created after many years of wartime in Europe. And it was on the back of that Eurovision happened. There was a time when Europe wasn't peaceful. I remember in 2013, I was in Ukraine. I've been there a couple of times, and then it had sort of started. And then Jamala won. That was in 2016. A lot of people don't want to make Eurovision political, but I think it's just impossible to separate because politics is life and music has always been a way of speaking about these issues. You know, Bob Dylan and Joan Baez, music is art, and, you know, and politics, you can't really separate that. So I don't think it should be separated. And yeah, I do think it was the right decision to exclude Russia and then, of course, Belarus. Imagine the Ukrainian delegation, the Russian delegation in the same competition. It would be so awful. Two countries at war and one country has invaded the other. You
know, as someone who's Swedish and it's also right across the bridge, how has Malmö changed over these 10 years?
When I was there, it was lovely, and I have been back since. I didn't see a lot of people out on the streets. It looked completely empty, and I saw some footage from the opening ceremony, and it felt like they were trying to hide that it didn't seem like there was a lot of people.
I've heard people say that in Eurovision Village, it's very empty, and that are worried that like the security risk and fear and a lot of talk about it has maybe made people staying home more.
Yeah, I barely saw any people out on the streets when I went there. It was a really lovely vibe when I was there in 2013 and sunny and people everywhere. And yeah, I didn't get that impression.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that the world almost needs Eurovision more than ever now. But it's breaking under the weight of these issues.
Speaking of this year's Eurovision, do you have any favorites?
What do they call Windows?
95 man, yeah.
In the beginning, that maybe some of the people were not super happy about the win, but I think it's really fun. I think humor doesn't get credit. Same with movies. Funny movies never get the credit like dramatic movies. And I think it should be more okay to use humor in songs. It can be funny and good at the same time.
We spoke with Windows 95 Man, and he talked about that he was going to like a festival that was very sort of button up upper class. And he's like, I think people take life too seriously. So he goes, I put on this Windows 95 shirt because he kind of wanted to show to these people that they're too high strung.
Yeah.
So as silly as it is, it had like an actual point.
Yeah, and we need that. But no, I love Saba as well. I met her this first day because we were doing a gig at the Swedish embassy. I mean, incredible voice.
I know it's been a rocky couple of years for Denmark. Yeah. But
I will never get over the fact that Riley did not make it into the finale.
Oh,
we've talked about this before too. That the Eurovision vocals tend to be kept quite dry.
Yeah.
And that type of song, he's in the falsetto the whole time almost.
So it's very vulnerable. And
exactly.
Also, they often mix, I think, the vocals quite loud compared to the track where it can almost sound like you're off key, even if you're not, because I think the track is mixed too low. Like we're not robots, and it's live and nerves. We're used to hearing the autotune all the time. So many people use it live. I mean, I haven't so far, but I might do at some point. I haven't done yet. But, when I record, of course, I also use autotune on a lot of things because
I mean, no one
makes the sound of the voice more like put together, or more full. It's also just the sound of the autotune.
Right.
And I have a sensitive ear, so if I hear a singer where there's not autotune on a recording, I'm like, I have to get used to that.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank
This is
you.
absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
All the mysteries of the Euroverse.